And we're back with more New Sox Saga 960. So very glad you could join us on this edition of the Mark Petrona Show. Well, Canada Day is coming up quickly, and guess what? Andy Lee has some big plans. She wants you to know that the spirit of the Trucker Convoy is alive and well, and she plans to resurrect a little bit of that. Maybe not with a truck, but just by being there and saying a few things, maybe addressing the crowd. Who knows? Let's bring Andy in from beautiful Calgary, Alberta.
Hi,
Andy,
Mark.
welcome.
It's good to be back. Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, when we heard about the protest, a lot of people said that it really captured a feeling, and it was a feeling of unity and togetherness and freedom, and they hadn't felt that in a long time. And I think that that was the essence of it that caught a lot of people's hearts. And what I heard is that a lot of people wanted that feeling back. They wanted that feeling of unity. They didn't want all this, this browbeating of, we're bad citizens, and you should fall into line, and you're all racists and you're all terrible. They don't want all of that. They wanted that, that spirit that was captured in the convoy of togetherness again, and the feeling that we are all in this together, and that we're all acceptable. We're not unacceptable people. So I'm heading to Ottawa, right? I'm going to fly out. I'm going to meet James Top. I'm going to march into town with him, and Roman Weber's out there. Maxime Bernier is going to be out there. We're on different sides of the political spectrum. That's okay. I think that's the point of these protests, is that they shouldn't be politicized. They should stay pure in their intent. So we're all going there to sort of back up James, march into Ottawa, and try to regain that feeling that Canadian is, being Canadian is fun. It's free. It's a liberating feeling. We can gather, and we can enjoy each other's company, and we can congregate again, and all those things that we missed during the pandemic. I miss them. Right, that really, really, really hurt me. It devastated me personally. When I was restricted. And I'm sure that that's, I've seen that same phenomenon in my children, right? I've seen that my children have suffered socially in their well-being, and I think a lot of people can relate to that. So we're going to try to recapture it. Is it going to be as impressive as 1,000 big trucks? No, it's probably not going to be, but I do think it's going to be a lot of fun. And I think they're going to have a lot of trouble cracking down on us,
Well,
because
really, why?
well, I mean, we're going in on foot, right? So I said no convoys, no blockades. Let's show up on foot, bring your camping gear, pitch a tent, bring your silliest stuff, right? Bring a slip and slide, make it ridiculous. Somebody said silly string, right? Like, let's have a silly string fight. So, I mean, it's just sort of, the more, I feel like the more innocent we can be in these demonstrations, um, and the pure and more fun our message is, the worse our government looks for what it did to us. Right? Like,
Yeah.
it's really kind of thumbing a nose at what the government did to us and how they cracked down on us. Like I said, come, bring whatever you've got, bring your camping stuff, bring your hibachi. They might take our hibachis, they might take our tents. I don't know if they can take our sleeping bags, though. They haven't directly addressed me. I did call Ottawa Police just to let them know that we were coming. This was our plans. We're having a dance party. None of this was necessary. The reason that it's necessary is because our government said that we were unacceptable people who should be excluded from society, right? So you know what? People
Yeah.
don't feel welcome at Canada's Day celebrations anymore. I know that they've moved celebrations off the hill. They've moved them to a different location. They didn't want, obviously, protesters showing up in front of Parliament Hill on Canada Day. So they've moved those. And so, I just said that they did it solely because they didn't want us to show up and protest in front of government on Canada Day. But you know what? It's just, the problem is that most of these people feel unwelcome now. and the government said that they were unwelcome. They said, should we exclude these people from society? Do we tolerate these people? So you know what? These people are going to go, and we're going to have our own celebration. And you know what? Everybody's welcome. We don't discriminate. If you want to come over to the Fringe, that's fine. We're trying to plan carefully so that the two sides don't cross.
Well, here's your tweet from earlier, Andy. There will be a media availability with James Topp as he meets with members of Parliament in Ottawa. Please message me at the Real Andy Lee Show at gmail.com. And you've invited the mainstream media.
Yeah, well, you know what? I think that this is part of, what we want to see is we want to see some healing and some trust restored, because trust in mainstream media was obliterated during the Trucker Convoy.
Yeah.
It really was. And it's not a good thing for democracy. It's not a healthy thing to be seeing. That's not what we want. We want people to be able to trust. I mean, this is great that me and you do this, but I've only got a reach of 50,000 people, 100,000 people. Our mainstream media are able to reach millions of viewers. So it's really important that we try to restore trust and, get on board and get on the same page. And so some of them have responded to me already. So that's great. We've got.
What did they say? What was their response?
They're mixed. I mean, a lot of them, it's a bit sad. I mean, I'm not going to betray confidentialities, but
Okay.
A lot of them have said that they have to pitch it to their higher ups to get permission to cover. And that's really concerning to me, because to me, if there's good journalists who want to cover this and want to participate, and maybe, try to restore some trust in journalistic standards in Canada, I don't think they should have to pitch it to anybody. I don't think they should have to answer to anybody. These are the people that we trust to bring us the news. And if they say that this is the news, and they want to attend, then they should be able to go.
Why would they ignore it, though? I mean, does that strike you as counterproductive? I mean, if you want to restore faith, I mean, you talk about the millions of people that the mainstream media attracts. Well, it's not that many millions anymore. The faith in mainstream media has been in sharp decline. And what we saw over the course of the convoy, where they absolutely lied about this so-called Russian-backed group of Nazi white supremacists, and supporters of the pre-US Civil War Confederacy, rapists and arsonists. So they threw all this stuff, and a lot of that is highlighted in Tom Quiggin's new book, by the way. But I mean, if they want to restore faith in their operations, they should be trying to change their ways. I mean, they should be covering this in a way that's fair. But I mean, maybe that's too tall an order for these people. What do you think?
Well, I mean, like you said, I've heard back from individual journalists who are very much, and we've got good relationships. We've met during the protests before. And, unfortunately, they seem bound by sort of, corporate policy, and they have to pitch their stories before they're allowed to run it. That was actually really, it was a really telling moment to me. And it's why sort of I love doing what I do, because I'm free to pursue what I want. I'm trying to imagine what it would be like to be a journalist where you're not free to pursue what you want and to present it how you feel is fair, and you're answering to a board or a team who say, no, you know what, we're not going to cover James Topp. And there's a lot of good reasons to not cover James Topp. Apologies. One of the reasons is that obviously the more coverage he gets, the more support he's going to get. And the more support he's going to get, the more people are going to go to Ottawa. I already think there's going to be a lot of people going to Ottawa, and especially in the last couple of days. So Is it sort of furthering this government's agenda that they don't want to see a huge march coming in, something that, might capture, the hearts and minds of Canadians again, like the truckers did? I mean, this man's walked across Canada. That's incredible, right? I mean, how many people can actually do
No,
this?
yeah, he did. He marched. He didn't just saunter or
No, I
walk.
mean,
I mean, the guy, like,
scared because I watched
he
videos and he moves at
marched,
a good clip,
marched across
right?
Canada.
Yeah, and I'm going out and I'm going to march with him, right? So I'm a little
Yeah.
bit concerned, to be honest. I'm like, oh my gosh, am I going to be able to keep up with these people? I mean, they really do go at a good clip. So yeah, so I mean, but anyways, I think it's a good thing ultimately. Maybe it's laying bare some of our weaknesses. But like I said, we are going to have some mainstream media there tomorrow, who have gotten permission or have decided to go, I guess, on their own route. We know that some of our papers have said they do not sort of endorse journalists when they're covering these freedom events. For example, National Post, Rupa Subramania writes for National Post, but when she was out covering Freedom Convoy events, she had to work as an independent. They wouldn't endorse her stuff while she was doing that. So yeah, I mean, what can I say? We're trying, right? There's a big divide. We're trying to bridge it as best as we can. I think that we work better when we work together. I think that mainstream media has some reflection to do, some internal reflection to do, and that they failed in covering the convoy. This is sort of, this is another opportunity for them. And I don't think it has to be a negative thing. I think that, if they do a good job, even if we get, an extraordinary amount of people out, an extraordinary amount of numbers, it can be a real healing process for our country. Like, we need this. We need this,
For
right?
sure. Absolutely. No, listen, I would agree with you.
Like, we
I
can't
mean,
keep.
if I just have very little faith in the government to heal. I mean, we're talking about a government in Ottawa that is all in on divisiveness, right? I mean, look at the way this prime minister ran his last election campaign. It was about those people, those unvaxxed racists, those white supremacists, those undesirables, those deplorables. I mean, it was all about us against them. That's how he waged his election campaign. And during the convoy, did he come out? Did he try to meet with people? Did he come out and say, let's talk about this. Let's talk about the issues? And the answer is no. He had no interest in doing that. He didn't want to lower himself to speak with these protesters. He was more than happy to go to the BLM Antifa riot and take a knee before that bunch. But when it came to the truckers, no, he distinguishes between these terrorists in Antifa and hardworking truckers who were calling for an end to the mandates. He's all in on supporting terrorists. He's dead set against meeting even for 10 minutes with the truckers who had a legitimate beef against these ongoing ridiculous mandates.
Yeah.
And so, there's no conversion on the road to Damascus for this prime minister. That's it. What you see is what you get with this clown. Andy, it's true.
Yeah, well, like I said, I just said, he sort of picked this methodology, and this methodology was to, to incite hatred and distrust in between his citizens. That was, I mean, there were studies that he did, right? I mean, they did like PSYOP studies on Canadians to see if this was an effective political wedge issue, which is pretty scary and pretty disgusting when you think about it. When you think that their entire agenda is supposed to be about bringing us together, but secretly they're pitting us against each other. So I just said, ultimately this method has failed, and it will be Justin Trudeau's undoing. And so if I can be a part of his undoing, I'm happy to play that part, right? If I can play that role and show people around Canada and talk to MSM and bring MSM into the fold and and get us to come together in spite of our differences and band together. I don't think he ever counted on us. He never counted on vaccinated people, standing with unvaccinated people. He thought, you know what, if you guys get your tidbits, if we let you travel and we give you these perks, you're not going to see what's deeply flawed in this policy, right? He thought that we were very superficial.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So the fact that you are fully vaxxed, are you? Boosted and all that crap? Yeah, that's fine.
You know what? I know discrimination when I see it.
I'm not, and yet here we are in the same
and
box
you're
of TV.
Florida. You're
Except Florida. I'm in Florida because I have to get away from that.
So BS. I mean,
I'm not into the state deciding what goes into my body. This is my temple here, and the idea that I'm going to relinquish control over what goes in here to the state, blackface could go pound sand. That will never happen in the history of time. In a billion trillion years will that ever happen? Where I'm going to say, oh sure, treat me like livestock, go to hell, blackface. I mean, and this, I know, I admire the fact that you're still as optimistic as you are, considering you were canceled, you had your bank accounts frozen, you had basically your assets, seized, not quite seized, but you had no access to your bank accounts because you dared support the convoy. Anyway, can you hang in? Because I got to ask you about some of the work you're doing, some of your stories. Can you hang in for another segment or you got to run? I know you're busy.
No, let's take a break.
All right, quick break. Back with more on News Talk Saga 960 and the Mark Petronis Show after this. Yeah, we're back. Welcome back. Mark Petroni with you on Saga 960. Andy Lee joining us from Calgary, Alberta, where she is planning to venture east to Ottawa to take part in another peaceful protest. I noticed one of your tweets earlier saying, I will be arrested, true or false. I mean, did you actually have a poll that asked people whether or not they think you're going to be arrested? And if so, why did you do that?
Well, I mean, a lot of people are saying that I should be arrested just for saying I'm going to Parliament to protest. And that's indicative of the state of Canada right now. I mean, you know what? I said it doesn't matter what you want to protest. If you want to protest that the sky is blue, guess what? That's a right that's enshrined in the highest laws in our land. You should be able to do that. So a lot of people are saying that I should be put up on sedition charges, treason charges, conspiring to create, to incite mischief or mischief charges. And again, I haven't done any, in-depth organizing. I talked to James Topp and Veterans for Freedom, but there's no sort of, big agenda. I just simply said, I'm going. This is my right. I have a right to protest against my government. They can't stop me, so I'm going to go. And a lot of people seem to think that in and of itself, should warrant some sort of charges or arrest or even jail time.
A lot of people online are actually demanding that you be arrested.
If you look,
crazy.
They're saving all. They're saving
you're
all.
The most peace-loving person I know. But you have done some pretty powerful work in journalism. For instance, here's a tweet of yours. The annual report on our inglorious Canada Infrastructure Bank has been released. General operating costs for the bank for the 2020-2021 fiscal year, which employs 95 people, were over $48.4 million. To my knowledge, no projects were completed. The bank was formed in 2017. So the fact that no projects were completed means that $48.5 million was spent on what, Andy?
Well, Nothing? I mean, they say it's salaries and administration costs, and there's also some costs for consultants in there. But I'm like, you know what, let's get real here. We're incurring these sort of costs yearly and no projects have actually come to fruition. One of the better projects that actually was built was an LRT line. But even the architects who worked on that LRT line ended up walking off the job, a lot of them, because they said it was redundant, it wasn't needed. So a lot of these projects are done in the name of green energy. So what happened is we started with an infrastructure bank that was supposed to build needed infrastructure. And then the mandate kind of slowly changed and it transitioned when they couldn't actually get projects completed, funded, and built. They transitioned it into being a green thing. So this is basically like a green infrastructure bank, right? But the problem is that a lot of these projects, the consultants raise concerns that they're not viable, that they're not necessary in the case of the LRT, even though the LRT and that contract, of course, was given to SNC-Lavalin. So, the the
What a
LRT.
shocker that is.
I know that
Wow.
the arch
Imagine SNC-Lavalin getting another contract from the Liberals.
the architect said that
You know,
it actually,
who could have predicted that?
like, they were like, this project is like, it's like a make work project. It's not going to stop people from driving. There wasn't the demand for this LRT project that you would expect. And if there's not the demand, I mean, keep in mind, the point of this bank is that it's supposed to be to make money, right? Banks make money. That's what they do. So the idea was that public, funds would put a little bit of money in, private investors would put a lot of money in to projects that create revenue. But the problem is that the consultants are saying that these projects will not create revenue, right? So,
So they were
um,
like, what, make work projects kind of deal? Is that it?
so
Just
we're taking losses every year. And yeah, I mean, one of the things that I'm looking at right now, and I've talked to Parker Gallant. He's a fantastic energy consultant, very
yeah,
talented
Parker
individual.
Gallant has been on this show many times, and
Yeah,
he's
incredible.
very, very smart.
Yeah, so I reached out to him because I was really concerned about this one project, and that's an Oneida battery storage. So the idea is that it will store electricity on off hours, and then it will discharge it to save electricity money in peak hours. But the problem, and I talked to Parker about this, I said, hold on here. Every study I've looked at, this sort of a battery storage distribution plant shows that this is a more expensive way of distributing energy. It's not saving anybody any money. And Parker was like, yeah, that you nailed it, right? And I looked at studies and studies and studies to try to find a way that this was, a more reliable and cost-effective way of distributing energy. So this is just one of these green schemes. Now, the bitch of this project is that the owner of this company, she's a woman called Annette Verschuren. She's one of the richest women in the world. She was the CEO of Home Depot. And so this was her project. She's good friends with Justin Trudeau. She's gone with Justin Trudeau and Katie Telford to the White House to state dinners. They talk each other up. And so I'm like, hold on here. We're giving one of the richest women in the world.
Well, they gave Loblaws money for crying out loud.
Like,
I
we're
mean,
giving
this is
her.
ridiculous. So, who's getting the kickbacks here? Is Blackface getting kickback?
Well, we don't know, right? Everything's in a blind trust. I mean, we won't know until he's done and we get into that blind trust. And I did have a peek inside of, or tried to have a peek inside of his blind trust. One of the companies that used to hold his father's estate, Pierre Elliott Trudeau's estate, was held by a lawyer. She's a member of the Trudeau Foundation, and her name is Louise Houle. And shortly after she took control of this account, she signed over the business to Alexandre Trudeau. And Alexandre Trudeau then fell into a bit of trouble, he didn't do his corporate filings on this company that was supposed to hold the estate of his father. So the company actually ended up getting dissolved. It was legally dissolved by ISED Canada. And I talked to ISED Canada and I was like, hold on here. We've got like our prime minister invested in a company that his brother runs that holds his father's estate, and they didn't do their corporate filings, so it was dissolved, and nobody's asking questions about this except
Yeah,
for
you're
me.
the only one. Yeah.
Come on here.
We got to
This,
spend more time on this, but with the time we've got left, though, Andy, I need you to weigh in on can you give us a few minutes on the China's growing tentacles in lithium, or do we have time for that? I mean, I know
no, I
it's a
mean,
very,
this is a whole
can you give us
show.
the short strokes? That
Yeah,
can
this is
you
a
give us a
whole show.
preview? Give us a sneak
I mean,
preview.
we know that our government got into a lot of trouble with US lawmakers when I busted them selling off neolithium to Zijin Mining. And there was a whole, hullabaloo. There was meetings. There was a CSIS report. There's now actual meetings in the House of Commons on critical minerals. And so, but here they are, and they're doing it again. So Ultra Lithium, we did a show on this before. It's got, it's a Canadian company. It's got foreign assets as well, but it also has 2 lithium mine assets in Canada. And so what's happened here is that Yahua took and I'm looking into the legality of what's a controlling stake. Controlling stake, it's a fluid terminology, but they took a 13% stake in the entire company.
You're talking about the Chinese. The Chinese took a 13%
Yeah,
stake in this company.
in the company. So most people will say a controlling stake is over 10%. That's sort of,
I thought it was over 50% own
no,
actual
it
control of the
depends.
company.
If you look at the terminology, and that's what I'm researching, and that's why we
Okay.
can't do this yet. But a 10% stake is considered a very, very high stake and a controlling stake in a company. But in any event, my bigger concern was that they took 60% stakes in these 2 subsidiaries, and these are actually located in Canada. And I said, no, this sale should be blocked. And I'm reading up on the Investment Canada Act. Now, it looks like you don't have to complete a full takeover for transactions to be assessed under the Investment Canada Act. That's the act that scrutinizes foreign takeovers and corporate transactions in Canada. So it looks like all that there has to be is a controlling stake taken. So there's no doubt here that there was a controlling stake taken in 2 subsidiaries. Now, what happened after that? And I said, just wait. The Chinese are going for a takeover. And so as soon as Yahoo got that and was not questioned on it, they turned around and they sold off more than 60% of another subsidiary to another Chinese mining giant called Zhangyi. So, and this is how they work. Now, Yahoo and Zhangyi have worked together before. They also work with Zijin, who took over Neolithium. So this is how they operate is, they buy them up piece by piece. They don't get a lot of attention.
Yeah, and then sell them to other Chinese companies, and then you have to follow the breadcrumbs from one company to the other. Meantime, it all leads to the Chicoms, the Chinese government control.
Really, where it leads to is most of it leads to CITIC, and it leads to the Bank of China. Those are the big stakeholders.
All right, so you've raised this issue with a number of congressmen or congresspeople, people in the United States, right? In order to nail Justin Trudeau over this? Talk about that with the time we've got left.
Yeah, so I did bring it up. I wrote to Senator Waltz. Sorry, my dog's barking here. I wrote to Senator Waltz the last time.
That's all right.
And said, this is my work. I did this. So I'm in the midst of writing to him again. Like I said, I'm still putting this story together. But it's just, when you see our politicians out there braying, and we just renewed a partnership like 5 days ago, saying that we were going to secure critical mineral supply chains independent of authoritarian states. And this is so important. And the reason it's important, well, just look at Russia and oil and gas right now. Okay. Look at Germany. This is what happens. Okay. They're in trouble. They're firing up coal plants because you know what? They relied on authoritarian states. We are relying on authoritarian states, and this is why you don't do it, right? And this is why we're so weak geopolitically, is that we literally can't sanction companies and countries even when we want to, because they could say, you know what, we're going to cut off your exports, right? So this is not the leg that we want to be standing on. So we just renewed this. All of our politicians were out there. Jonathan Wilkinson's out there, Francois Philippe Champagne's out there, Chrystia Freeland. They're all talking about how they're securing our supply chain for critical minerals. And I'm like, no, you are not. Okay, you just allowed this sell-off. I rose concerns about it in March with my friends from the Epoch Times. They sent me this story. And now what have we got? Now, not only do we have the Chinese having a controlling stake in two Thunder Bay lithium mines, now they've further sold off to another Chinese company. And obviously this was all coordinated, well planned. And now they've got a huge controlling stake in an Argentinian mine. So you know what? They didn't just get one, they got three. And they did it right.
They're trying to corner the market on these rare minerals, of course, because they know that these are critical in the use of computers. And once they've got that, and I can't believe that this slimeball prime minister is just allowing China to do it. But I guess you shouldn't be surprised. That's what prime ministers who are on the take do. Andy, I got to wrap things up, but thank you so much for this. I appreciate this, and I know our listeners do as well.
Yeah, it's great. And we'll be back tomorrow. So we'll, James Topp is going to be giving a speech to MPs. So let's live stream that. I'm going to be getting a live stream. And
awesome. Okay.
So let's do that tomorrow. Okay.
All right. Andy Lee, thank you. And I got to take a break. Back with more News Talk Saga 960 and the Mark Petrona Show after this.